Sure. All right, everybody. Well, welcome to ShiftCo Clubhouse training. We're going to get started here. It's a few minutes after. We might get some stragglers in here. So if folks can help keep up with chat, if there are any questions, go ahead and put your questions there. Let's try and keep everybody, let's try and keep folks on mute. We'll kind of pause a little bit here and there to get questions answered. You know, want to go through a little bit of an agenda, so that way we know, we have an idea of what we're going to go over today. In doing that, we're gonna go over kind of the invitation process, and maybe if some people are kind of waiting in the wings and they're not in Clubhouse yet, we can see if we can get some folks registered and help get people access. I'm sure there's quite a few of us with some extra invitations, so we can get that piece moving. We're going to go over kind of more participant features, and then segue a little bit into how profiles and messaging works. Then we'll get into moderator features, like, all right, if you're running a room or you're the bouncer or managing access, you know, how do those things work? We'll go over a couple of highlights on settings and searching for different interests in clubs and people. We'll talk about clubs in general, how they work, how management of them comes down, and we'll kind of end with strategy, some tips I have and things that I've learned on how to approach things with Clubhouse to try and get the most out of it without you know, banging your head into the wall a little bit. So kind of moving along with a little bit of housekeeping as we get started here. I highly recommend watching this Zoom from your computer or tablet, so not your phone, so that you can follow along with us on the Clubhouse app as we're talking about settings and where to click and stuff like that. It'd be great if on your screen you can see me with my Clubhouse app open, and you can click around on the Clubhouse app yourself. Now, you do have to have an iPhone right now. It's only on iOS to be able to be on Clubhouse. And I don't even think you can really have it on your tablet, because it's, you may be able, I'm not smart enough on how to get it on your tablet, but all of the invitation features are tied to phone numbers, right? You send a text hyperlink, and that's how you get set up initially with your Clubhouse account. So so if you're in the event room on Clubhouse and on Zoom, I recommend mute the audio on your phone so it doesn't, you're not getting audio from multiple sources. Go ahead and we'll pause and halt recording here in just a moment, because what I want to do is go ahead and make use of the, I'll actually stop sharing my screen in a moment so it's a little easier to get to the participant tab and chat. But please throw a shout out into the chat if you both have an iPhone, and whether you downloaded the Clubhouse app or not, you still need an invitation. So you haven't been able to fully get into the app yet because you need an invite to Clubhouse. If there's anybody here on this event live that needs that, I highly recommend let's just do it right now. That way you can get into the app for the first time while we're walking through it. I've done this kind of walkthrough, kind of one-on-one with lots of people, kind of on the fly as they first connect. So I think it'll be a real valuable use of people's time. I'll go ahead and stop sharing for a moment. Oh, and one other shout out, as far as Android, all right, they're expecting probably release early summer. They had been saying hopefully in the spring. Things seem to be taking a little bit longer to get that rolled out. So I'd expect if you're an Android user, or if you have an iPhone but you'd prefer to use it on Android, I'd say sometime here, maybe June, would be a good expectation. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing so I can take a better look at chat. All right. And now this is the point, Terry, at some point here. All right. Now, yep, all the speakers here, Tina, Terry, you're aware we are recording. So heads up with that, with that notification. I'm not going to promote people in the Clubhouse room to speaker at this point, but we're going to walk through some features. We're going to handle some invites. Just to close the topic on invites, as Paige and Jennifer and some other folks are graciously working behind the scenes with the in the chat to help a few folks get into Clubhouse for the first time. I'm going to show you folks how to do that for other people. So we'll start off, like I said, with the agenda with invitations. You see that envelope in the top center of the screen. I click on that. It says you've got 5 invitations. There's 2 ways you can invite people. They've upgraded the capability to do that. It used to be you had to add them as a contact in your phone and then search for that contact within this invitation feature. Now you no longer need to add them as a phone contact. You can simply type their phone number in, and that will essentially text them an invite that will grant them access. One last thing of note with invitations is you generally have a certain amount. When you first join Clubhouse, you'll get one. Using the app will get you more invitations. If you have people you want to get in, just use the features of the app more. You'll get more of them over time. They generally cap out about 5. So if you have 5, you're probably not going to get any more until you send some more out. The amount of users on Clubhouse has grown very strongly. In January, they had 2 million users. By the end of February, they had 10 million. And I don't think they've released figures with how much it's grown in March. So it's really, there's been a lot of growth there, and it's even with the invitation-only format. So I don't think they're looking to change that anytime soon. All right, so want to go ahead and kind of transition into some participant features. So with this, I'm referring to, all right, you join a room. How does that work? How do you talk? How do you move around? What do the buttons mean? So for those of you who have been in Clubhouse and participating, this will be a little bit simple, but there might be some tidbits in here that that you'll be able to learn from. When you look in here, the most important thing is the microphone button. If you look down on the right, oh, I can't pulse it. Tina, if you wouldn't mind being a help here, could you mute your microphone, please? Unmute? No, could you pulse it, like mute and unmute in Clubhouse? I want to show people is how you can see the mute button on speakers. So either Terry or Tina.
But it doesn't show on your Zoom screen, but it does show on Clubhouse.
Yeah, I think what part of the issue is I'm disconnected from audio on Clubhouse because I'm broadcasting on Zoom. So I wasn't anticipating that. But suffice to say, in this bottom area with the microphone, you'll see oftentimes a microphone kind of over the bottom left corner of people's picture. Okay, and when you unmute, you're able to speak. When you remute, you're no longer able to speak. There are 2 sections associated with a room. You have what's called the stage and what's called the audience. So the stage are the people up top. If you see here, there are 3 people on stage right now: Tina, Tim, and Terry. All right, and with that, those folks are able to unmute and speak. And in general, you want to stay muted while other people are speaking, because distractions, noise, typing in the background, dogs barking, things like that. And so much like with Zoom etiquette, you keep yourself muted while other people are speaking, and you unmute to kind of join into the conversation, right? One fun piece of Clubhouse unwritten rules etiquette is when you pulse your microphone, when you mute, unmute in rapid succession, that's kind of a way of animating yourself. Because when folks are talking, when they're on the stage, then they, you don't want to interrupt them, but maybe they say something really interesting. Maybe they talk about something that you're really excited to hear them talk about. Pulsing your microphone is a way to kind of animate yourself visually without interrupting someone. So people use it for different types of things, but that's the most common use. So if you see microphones freaking out when you're in a Clubhouse room, it's usually showing support for what a speaker's talking about, or sometimes they want to interrupt them in a in a polite way and signal to them like, hey, I have something to say about this, things like that. So it's a little bit of a flexible tool. Other things that you can use, I'm going to kind of do some stuff with Tina here with the moderator. I'm going to move her to the audience. Okay. So this is the audience section. When you're in the audience down there with Tina, Paige, Chris, Trisha, and everybody else, you can hear what's going on, and you can see the speakers. They can see that you're there, but you cannot unmute. You cannot speak. If you would like to speak, if you would like to do something, there's a hand raise button in the bottom middle of the screen. Tina, if you wouldn't mind raising your hand to speak. And you see Jennifer has requested to come up and speak. Tina requested to come up and speak. That shows me as a moderator, I've now sent them an invitation to come on stage. And now here she is. And you'll notice now that there are green stars next to my name, next to Terry's name, but not next to Tina's anymore. Those green stars mean that those people are moderators for the room. Now, a moderator has a lot of power in the room. Don't just give it to everybody as a badge of honor. Moderators can end the room. They can kick people. They can move people onto the stage. They can do all sorts of things. And so make sure whoever's a moderator in the room, you're willing to trust with the privileges of completely running the room and even kicking you out, right? So so don't mess with strangers that you're talking to for the first time as a moderator if you can avoid it. All right, so other participant features. Like I said, if you're in the audience and you'd like to come up to ask a question or become part of the conversation, raise your hand. The other feature at the bottom there, there's two more. There's the leave quietly. So part of Clubhouse culture is you don't need to say goodbye. People are kind of talking one at a time. When you need to go, go. When you want to come back, come back. Like sliding in and out, like it's not considered rude to leave in the middle of a conversation. People understand they're coming and going as they have the availability and the time. And that's why it says leave quietly with the peace sign, right? The other thing down there is the plus feature. It's called what we refer to as pinging someone into the room. Say you're in a room and people are talking about conscious entrepreneurship, and you were like, oh my gosh, I gotta ping some Shiftco people into this room. They would really enjoy this conversation. When you hit the plus, okay, what this will do is this will show your contacts first. Now they have to be mutual follows. So you have to follow them and they have to follow you as well. And they're gonna show people who are actively in the Clubhouse app, and those will show in green. And then you'll notice as you scroll down, it'll sort them in order of recent activity, right? And so in this case, Amanda and Amy, they were active 15 to 20 minutes ago in the app. So when you ping people, you're more likely to, they're more likely to come in your room and join the conversation if they're already using the app or they've been using the app recently, right? Now, when somebody's in your club or you're in a club or something like that and they start a room, you may get a notification of that, but pinging is a more it's a more intrusive way of saying, hey, you really should come over here, right? So don't overuse it, but don't underuse it as well. I'm gonna invite Kelly up because she asked, and you can move yourself back down if you no longer want to be on stage. Now I don't believe I'm able to broadcast the Clubhouse audio while I'm also showing my screen. So I apologize about that if people are talking in there. But let's go ahead and move on. So what I want to show real quick is just an example of what happens when you ping someone. In this case, I had my wife ping me. So if I'm in a room or using the app somewhere and somebody sends me a ping, this is what they see. They get a big green pop-up on top that says, so-and-so is inviting you to this room for this club, and how many people are there, right? So if you're kind of in one conversation, somebody pings you into another, you can decide where you want to be, or you can bounce around, go back and forth, right? I just took a screenshot of that. Okay. So I think that pretty much sums up kind of basic participant features. Another couple of things to just go over is what you have, what they call the hallway. You can minimize, if you're in a room, you can go ahead and minimize that and go to the hallway. In the hallway, you're going to be able to see different rooms that are out there that maybe some of your connections are in, or they think, ooh, this is a room you might find interesting. And you can scroll through and find a conversation worth joining. All right. Lastly, once you build up some connections and you have some people regularly, another way you can look for conversations worth joining is, hey, where are my connections? Where are they at? And what are they talking about? Right? If you go to the bottom right, you'll see a square, kind of a square of dots with a green dot on it, right to the right of the start room. When you click on that, you'll be able to see, first off, you can look at the different active clubs that you're in, and you can actually start a room under that club name if you have permissions to do so, if the rules of that club allow you to do. But when you scroll down the available to chat, right, I can see all the people, again, mutual follows. They both follow you and you follow them. You can scroll through and see, what are people talking about? Oh, hey, Rami is talking about the latest with Impact Alpha. So is Ricardo. Cool. Jewel Kim is talking about scaling your business. A lot of folks that I'm connected to are Shiftco, and they're here talking with me. So I can kind of see, oh, hey, what is everybody doing? And let's say I want to go to Sigonia's room about career pivots. That's cool. I can check out the profile and everything, but when you first click on it, you notice at the bottom it says, hey, join the room they're listening to. So if you're connected with folks and you want to hop into their conversation, you may see the room in the hallway that we showed earlier, but going to this area to kind of get a better snapshot of what all your connections are in Clubhouse talking about, and then be able to join that conversation that way is a little more convenient for some people. All right. Now, I started seeing some questions pop up in the chat. I haven't reviewed them yet, about some stuff about bios and profiles and stuff like that. And so I'm going to go ahead and go to like profiles and messaging real quick, and then I'll kind of pause to look at questions and see if there's anything we left unanswered. All right. So I'm still in the room. If people are talking and I'm listening, like this whole time while I'm browsing around the Clubhouse app, I could still hear what the conversation is. I could still go back to the room and then unmute and offer my 2 cents or what have you, right? So as far as profiles are concerned, all right, I'll go ahead and click to my profile real quick, right? So when you first create your Clubhouse account, you've got to pick a username, and you've got to, you have the opportunity to put a bio in there, to type some things about yourself. Now, your username, it's an @ It's an app thing. You can make it whatever you want as long as it isn't currently in use. I mean, it's kind of like picking a username anywhere, picking a Twitter handle. You know, decide if you're going to be using Clubhouse in a really professional capacity, make sure it's professional or just tied to your name. If it's really for personal interests, you know, maybe you pick something a little bit different. But keep in mind the culture of Clubhouse, everything is tied to a real person. There's no brand account. There's no ShiftCo Clubhouse account. There's a Clubhouse account for Terry. There's a Clubhouse account for Tina. They really want to make sure things are tied to individuals, not entities. So pick something that's tied to, you know, something that represents you as an individual for your handle. For me, what I did was I imported a lot of stuff from my LinkedIn profile. I went to my LinkedIn About Me and I'm like, okay, I'm going to take some of this stuff and whittle it down. And I copied it on LinkedIn and then I pasted it in here. Okay. Now how you edit it, it's pretty easy. You just click on it with your finger and it will bring up and update your bio. And this is hard to do. It's clunky. Typing stuff in here can be a little bit cumbersome. I can't really bring up emojis. So oftentimes what I will do is if I want to add a new paragraph or if I want to rewrite something from scratch, I'll do it in another app. I'll do it in, you know, in Pages, or I'll even do it in a text message that I send to myself or something like that. Then I'll copy paste it in here with the paste feature, essentially, right? And something that you can do, you can edit your bio on a regular basis. What I did shortly before this Clubhouse thing is I put in the Zoom link in case somebody can't find the Zoom link, but they find the ShiftCo Clubhouse room, just as a layer of backup so that everybody can get connected with what we're doing today. If you're doing an event that kind of has multiple layers of media, that can be a helpful tool. Other things to think about are your profile picture, right? Your profile picture is a little circular, right? You click on it, you can upload whatever photo you want. A lot of times people will have a lot of fun with their photos because there aren't a lot of ways you can really animate yourself in Clubhouse. And so, you know, people might be joking around about llamas and then, you know, a bunch of people change their pictures to llamas, or somebody plays around with Photoshop and so that's kind of like part of the fun of Clubhouse. Now, when people do change their photo, you'll hear an acronym sometimes called PTR. PTR stands for push to refresh. And really all you do is you pull your finger down on the screen like so, it'll bring up a wheel and the order of the people on stage and any changed profile pictures will become apparent. Okay. So, you know, if I change my profile picture, let's say I make this my profile picture right now instead of pulling something from the library. Oh boy, that's awful. But let's use it. Not ideal, right? But now when you look at my screen and other people are in the Clubhouse room, they still see the old picture. And they're going to see the old picture. So oftentimes when people have some fun with something, they'll say, hey, PTR. And so when you PTR, it will update. See, Tina updated her picture as well. A lot of times people, the magic of Clubhouse is things are live. Things are happening in the real world. You have people who are listening to lullabies and trying to fall asleep together. You have people who are, you know, working out or doing work accountability or things like that. There's lots of interesting ways people are using Clubhouse. And you know, refreshing your photo to kind of prove you're real and in the moment with them can be a fun thing, right? And I'll just have to remember to change that back because that, I don't know, that looks pretty special, doesn't it? But anyways, we'll go ahead and move on a little bit. I want to check the chat, and it looks like someone's not muted on their phone. Well, try and mute yourself. Tina, I assume you're going to be the guard dog inside the Clubhouse room for me. And if somebody comes up as a speaker and they're not muted, go ahead and put them back to audience. All right. And looking through the rest of the chat, looks like Tina's been great helping answer people's questions, as far as, how do you download, getting the invites out there. There was a question on hey, what kind of username, advice on usernames you should pick. I don't think there's anything too anything too burning out there to keep us from moving on. So I've already gone over the fourth thing I wanted to do is moderator features. I've gone over that a little bit. You can, let's say somebody doesn't raise their hand. And let's say, for example, maybe I want everybody on the stage. In small rooms, oftentimes everybody comes up to the stage because it's more of a group conversation. Let's say, for example, I really want to hear from Paige. Hey, Paige, what's going on? What I can do is I can click on somebody and I can invite them to speak. And what that will do, that will send them a green pop-up saying so-and-so has invited you onto the stage. And they can choose whether to come or not. And see, she's come. And then Paige, why don't you move yourself back to the audience just to show that you can do that. See, I can move her to the audience or she can move herself. I could also make her a moderator and you can click around and view people's profiles, right? If I view somebody's profile, I can see a lot about what they're doing. All right, one other thing with profiles, right? I'll go back to mine, is that you'll be able to see quite a few things with people when you're looking at other folks' profiles. But one other thing that I strongly recommend is whatever social media you're active on, put a link there. If you're really, really active on Facebook Business or on Instagram or on LinkedIn, put something there. Right now, they can only officially link to 2 accounts, either Instagram or Twitter, as you can see on the bottom. But I'm most active on LinkedIn. So I put my LinkedIn link there. You can't click on it. You got to type it into a browser, but it may help people find me on LinkedIn. Or when I do send a connection request to them, it will it'll be more familiar to them because they will have known I'm on LinkedIn, right? But I do strongly recommend link up your account to either Instagram or Twitter or both, if you use both. Like for me, I don't use Instagram that much, right? If you go to account in settings, you can connect to Twitter or connect to Instagram that way, okay? And the way you get to settings is that gear in the upper right when you're looking at your profile, all right? Hopefully that's helpful for folks because you cannot direct message people on Clubhouse. If I want to send a message to Alana, I can't. I've got to connect with her in another social media platform in order to exchange direct messages. So having a method for other people to reach out to you is important. Now, I barely use Instagram, but I'll get a notification if somebody sends me a message, and then I can open it up and see what it is, right? So hopefully that's helpful with things that you can do with your profile and how to allow it so people can message you. Part of what I find is that, having been on Clubhouse for a little while, like you kind of have these like great, awesome connections. Wow, this person's really awesome. And then like 3 weeks later, you don't even remember who they are. Like it's very flash in the pan and then distant. So, bringing those connections over to the social media that you're more consistently engaged in, whether it's Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, whatever, is going to help you, maybe sustain that connection better over time and keep a conversation going. Last thing, if you notice at the bottom, I joined January 19th, 2021. It shows your join date and it shows who sent you that invite, who got you in. So don't send an invite to somebody that you don't want to be tied to their profile for the rest of their Clubhouse life. Make sure it's somebody that shares your values or is at least a reasonable human being, right? Don't send it to your like crazy uncle who's into tons of conspiracy theories and likely to put bigotry on the platform, right? Like it's probably not a good idea to tie yourselves to something like that, even if they want it on Clubhouse, right? So kind of going back, as far as other a little more advanced moderator features, okay, it doesn't happen often, but it does happen. Sometimes you get pranksters. You have people coming in the room, they ask to speak, and then they do weird hacky stuff where they make their profile disappear, but they're like spamming sound into the room. Like I hear reports that I have not run into this very often at all, but you want to know how to take control of a room, stuff like that. The three dots are your friend. You see those three dots in the upper right? When I click on that, you can report somebody who is a recent speaker if they were really kind of interfering or trolling in the room. You can end the room. If you're a musician and you're doing some broadcasting, you can upgrade the audio quality to more music audio sound and have a high quality room. You can also click on people in here. Like let's say, for example, oh my gosh, Terry, I can't believe you said that about Tina. Like that's hate speech. Like we need to get rid of you. Well, first off, I could move you to the audience, right? When I when I click through to you, after I move you to the audience, I can report you. I can also report you from here. I can block you. So that way we're very unlikely to show up in the same rooms. Like if you're in a room, I won't see it. If I'm in a room, you won't see it. I can remove you from the room. I can also remove you and report you for that awful behavior that we never want to see again, right? So if those things kind of pop up, those are the tools at your disposal right now, and they're changing those features kind of regularly over time. Other things to consider with settings. All right, I'm going to go back to that point and go to that gear. Okay. I'm not going to dive into this too much, but notification frequency, I think you should experiment with it. Okay, because it's really vague, very infrequent, all the way to frequent. I've found for me, I like having the notifications on frequent or very frequent, and I just make sure there's no sound associated with them. Because when I use Clubhouse, it's kind of, hey, I've got some time around lunch, or oh, my wife's going to be late coming home from work. And, when I have some mental space at a random time of day. And so when I keep the notifications very frequent, okay, when I look at my notifications, I'll have a lot. I'm not really seeing it here, getting lots of news stuff. I think because I'm in Clubhouse, it's not giving me Clubhouse notifications. I apologize. I'll get back in. But what happens is I may get notifications from Clubhouse every time friends are starting a room, or somebody in a club I'm in is starting a room, or these people are talking about that. I might get about 10 an hour, which is on frequent or very frequent. But the cool thing is, if I ever look at my phone and see what's going on, I know what people are talking about. I can see when my notifications, like the rooms that people I'm connected to are talking in that are very recent, right? If you keep the notifications infrequent, you're going to get less of that stuff. But also when you look at your phone, you're not necessarily going to know what people are talking about in that moment. So feel free to find the fit that is best for you with settings. The other thing with settings is interests. You can pick your interests here, which will help with recommendations in the hallway for rooms that are aligned with your interest that you would like to join. That's it for settings. Want to move on. We'll talk a little bit about searching. So let's say you want to find people you're connected with or that that are already on Clubhouse, or you want to find clubs based on your interest that you can join. And yes, Kim, you can absolutely add an interest, and you do that through settings. You go to your settings, you go to interest to answer your question, and say, I'm interested in Japanese. You just select it or unselect it. If your question is more specifically, can you add a new topic to the interests category? No, you cannot. They do have recommendations and stuff like that, and they have lots of other interests. They've expanded the amount of interest that they have to choose from over time by a little bit, but no, you can't put a custom interest in there. It has to be something that's already preloaded. Okay, so we're gonna, like I said, talk a little bit about searching. So especially if you're new to Clubhouse, you're not really connected to a lot of people or a lot of things. So you want to find some stuff to kind of build that initial connection and find those people. So part of that is with searching, common sense. So use a little magnifying glass in the upper left. So here you can search for people or clubs. You can also find conversations about various topics. Feel free to explore through this feature. It's going to recommend to you people to follow. All right. And when you do show more people, in general, most of this is going to be celebrities or very high profile people like Tom Holland. He's actually pretty much a regular person, not the Tom Holland you might think. So you get some people that maybe are phone contacts for you, or that, wow, out of your 20 connections, 10 of them are connected to this person, so you probably know them. You'll get some of that mixed in here, but a lot of this ends up being celebrities or influencers or things like that just, in this case, 150,000 people follow this guy. And so they're saying, oh, hey, you should follow him too. So, be selective with who you're following. Make sure it's people that you actually want to, when they're in a room, you want to know about it and you want to join them there. You want to hear what they have to say, right? There are lots of celebrities that kind of come in here and guest speak in certain rooms, like a celebrity that I really like the Shark Tank people, people like Mark Cuban, and stuff like that, just kind of nerdy interests of mine. So if they're on, like, hey, I want to know about that in case I want to hear what they have to say, right? So feel free to connect with celebrities. It's just you're probably not going to get they're probably not going to follow you back, right? Other things you can search for, and you can specifically search for people. Like, let's say Lisa Maxwell. I don't know if I'm connected to Lisa Maxwell. She's on this. She's on this call. Oh, sweet. There's Lisa. Oh, we do follow each other. Awesome. But you can type in, and see, I even misspelled her name. I put Waxwell, right? But it still kind of figured it out, right? So you can search for specific people there, people that you know. Say, oh, and more individually look for them. You can also search for clubs. All right, now clubs, we're going to start segue into this piece, is a group of people, members and followers, kind of united around some sort of cause. Like we have a club for ShiftCo. So yeah, if I type shift/co, boom, there it is. There's our ShiftCo club right there, 17 members, 2 followers, right? So what happens is, but let's say it's a club you're not connected to, right? Let's say, ooh, Beyond Coincidence. That seems interesting. Let's look at that club, right? And you can see that there's a bio type thing associated with the club. There's also usually a set of rules if you ask to join, right? And so, they put in some information here. Generally, it's a good idea if you're going to join a club, follow the leader of the club. So that way you're more likely to get a notification when they're hosting something, right? So go ahead and do that. Every club actually needs can have 3 interests or categories tied to it, but only 3. So in this case, they chose spirituality, mindfulness, and meditation. Remember, in your settings for interests, you pick things you are interested in. So you're more likely to have clubs come up that are tied to some of those interests that you have, right? So you can choose to follow a club. If I hit follow here, I can follow them. I can also unfollow them, right? Now, there's very little difference And you can also share a club, right? I can share this in a text message or a hyperlink. Tina, for example, on the Shiftco site, shared a link to this Clubhouse room that we're kind of simulcasting with, right? So there's ways to get links to stuff into the web, but people are going to have to click them on their phone to actually get there, right? So as far as searching for clubs and finding things, that's pretty simple. You type stuff in. I actually run a club that's local in Seattle. It's Seattle Anti-Freeze. It's kind of like a happy hour vibe kind of thing to just get to know people and authentically connect with folks. 80 members, 74 followers. So, and I think that the key with clubs is you want to have a regular event, not just have this loose club tied to it. And it used to be you had to have a weekly thing to create a club. They no longer have that restriction anymore. But and advertise that in your in your club bio if you do create one when rooms are being hosted, so that people have an expectation and they join because they want to be part of those conversations, right? Because if you're not going to host a room under the club, there's no real the reasons of having one are kind of fewer, right? It just becomes looking at people's profiles essentially. All right, now there's 2 roles within a club. All right, and I'm going to click on my profile, my lovely profile picture that will be replaced as soon as the Zoom is over, right? But at the bottom of your profile, and when you look at other people's profiles, you can see what clubs they're a member of. And you can see I get spam for club requests all the time. And I'm in like 50 clubs or something now. So I mean, it kind of gets washed out. So be cognizant of the amount of clubs that you're joining. And an idea is, if you're like, oh man, I want to get in a Clubhouse, I want to create a club, tap the brakes on that a little bit. Since they've opened up, anybody can create 2 clubs. It seems like there's almost more clubs than there are real people and real conversations. So my recommendation would be, search around, find a couple of clubs that are aligned with the types of things that you would want to host and talk about. Maybe you have a podcast and you'd like to host a Clubhouse room or whatever. Find somebody else's club, because they're trying to get eyeballs, they're trying to get attention. They're probably trying to run that club all on their own, and build some alliances. Be like, hey, go to a couple of their rooms. Be like, hey, I really like what you're doing here. I do something similar. Would you mind if I hosted a room under your club? Because then what will happen is, what will happen is now their user base, when you create a room under their club, you're now, everybody who's a follower or a member of that club is likely to get a notification for that. You're going to attract more visitors to your club. So finding those clubs that have like 50 to 400 people, and you're able to actually connect with the person who runs that club on another social media platform. Most club owners are really receptive to other folks hosting rooms under their umbrella, because it helps promote their brand, right? And what that can do is that can help build alliances and get you some exposure to get some of your content off the ground a little bit. So I usually recommend don't go start a club. Like, be in Clubhouse for a month and a half, host some rooms under other people's clubs or just on your own. Really make sure you feel really comfortable with moderating and all that stuff before you kind of put yourself out there and now you're pushing you're pushing custom content. Part of my recommendations there. All right. So one other question that comes up a lot is, hey, what's the difference between following a club and being a member of a club? And it's a great question, because there's very little difference. If you'll notice, like for example, I'm going to show you a little bit about club management, because I run the Seattle Anti-Freeze Club, right? you know, as the owner of a club, you see I've got members and I've got followers. Members are publicly able to be seen. You can see the members of a club. You cannot see the followers if you're not the owner or an admin of the club, right? And so, so if you follow the Seattle Antifreeze Club, if somebody looks up the club, they won't see you tied to it. If you decide to join as a member, they will see you're tied to it. So if you want that visibility, it would be better to be a member than a follower. Also, you will get notifications. I'll show you up here. So this is my activity feed, right? You will get stuff in your activity feed when people join a club that generally you are a member of. If you just follow it, you won't get any activity updates on people joining, as another person joining or things like that. So be cognizant of that if you want to kind of manage your traffic or activity, or you really want to be plugged in. Being a member, you just get a little bit more, but you get the same notifications. Sometimes you have the same ability to host rooms. I'm not 100% clear whether you can host a room as a follower. It depends on the permissions on how you set up your club. I'm not going to delve into creating a club and all of the options there, because I feel like that's probably a little, you know, maybe stretches this conversation out a little long, won't leave as much time for questions and answers, because it's a little more of a basic user. And I don't feel like I'm as qualified to do a training on club management. I have been running a club for about 6 weeks and doing regular rooms, but there are people maybe more qualified and doing YouTube videos. Go look that stuff up on YouTube. And it's a moving target. Other things I would like to call out are regular rooms that the founders of Clubhouse host, where they do town halls and question and answers, new user orientations. So a couple of things. If you look at Kim and Lisa here on their profile picture, they've got a little party popper, right? That means that's somebody who has joined Clubhouse in the last 7 days. So it's kind of like a little bit of privilege. It's like a backstage pass. People are extra nice to you when you're brand new to Clubhouse. They're very forgiving of you're trying to figure out the mic or things like that, and stuff like that. So take advantage of that. You're more likely to get, if you raise your hand, you're more likely to be given a chance to speak in a much bigger room, right? Things like that when you're new to Clubhouse. So take advantage of it. Wednesdays, and you'll have to search the web to double check the time in case they change them. But Wednesday evenings, the founders of Clubhouse, Paul and Rohan, and Anna, they do a new user orientation where they walk through all the features in more expertise and detail than I can and answer questions from folks for about 2 hours. So Wednesday evenings, they do that. Double check, search around for the time, you'll be able to find it. And on Saturdays, they do a town hall where they're talking more about like the state of the app and features they're working on and priorities for the community and development and resolving issues and things like that. So if you really get into Clubhouse, I would prioritize trying to go to those events to keep your finger on the pulse of what is going on. Okay, so so I think that's all I wanted to go through while broadcasting the app on the screen. Oh, sure, yeah, Tina mentioned how to start a club. I can show you how to do that, right? So so as she skillfully said in chat, go to your full profile, scroll all the way down to your clubs, and you got to click on the plus sign. However, if you're like me and a bunch of people invited you into clubs and you're a member of way too many, you got to scroll all the way to the right, just like that, and there's a plus sign. There, you click on that, create your club. Put a picture, club name. Are you going to allow followers or only members by invitation only? Are members allowed to start rooms? Is the member list private? Pick your 3 topics, put in a description. There's a separate area where you create a separate text field with rules for the club so that when people join, they're agreeing, or they join a room under the club, they're agreeing to the rules, right? So thanks, Tina, for answering that question in the chat and giving me an opportunity to just real quickly show how club creation works, okay? Just double checking the questions before I stop sharing my screen. Is it true you need to do 3 times regular events at the same time or on the same day weekly before Clubhouse allows you to create your own club? That question from Christina. Great question, Christina. That used to be the case about a month ago, and you had to send a support request to petition to get a club created. About a month ago, they changed that. Anybody can create a club. You don't need a regular room, okay? To do that. So, feel free to create clubs. Again, I just think that there's so much club spam out there. I think people are going to be more receptive to kind of joining forces in other people's clubs before you stake your flag in the ground and start your own. But that's just kind of my opinion. It depends on, I mean, if you've been in Clubhouse for a while and you're raring to go and you're an advanced user and you're like, all right, time to start a club, feel free to do so, obviously. And if you send me a club request, I'll probably accept, and I'll be at 100 clubs at some point soon. But anyhow, so question of, why do they mute you if you must leave a room when you return muted? Not quite sure what you're asking there, Michael, but I think Tina's trying to answer your question. One thing that I didn't mention that I think is worth mentioning, when you first come to the stage, your microphone is unmuted by default. Okay, so you come up to the stage and you're munching on chips, like be quick with that mute button, right? Or help remind people to be cognizant of their mute. One other thing I neglected to mention with moderator features, there's more etiquette. There's something referred to as resetting the room. And so think about it like a radio show, right? In the end, Clubhouse is kind of like half radio, half networking meeting, and okay, 1/3 radio, 1/3 networking meeting, and maybe about 1/3 like convention panel where you have like celebrity speakers and you get to ask questions and then they give their wisdom, right? Like, so so people are kind of wandering in and out. So like a radio show, people are like, every 15 minutes or so, it's good etiquette to reset the room, or expect that moderators are going to do something like that. Where it'll be like, okay, well, here's what the room's about. Here's what we're doing. If you want to ask a question, blah, 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 take about 25 seconds to kind of reset the room for people who have come in more recently, and then kind of back to the conversation or back to the round robin or what have you, right? So just terminology to be familiar with, all right? Or a 1990s party line, oh boy. That's going back in the day, Tina. All right, so I think we're good there. I'm going to stop sharing my screen before you see any more embarrassing notifications from TikTok and news apps and things like that. And I'm going to reshare my screen on the computer so that we can kind of recap what we went over and talk a little bit more on strategy and tips to close out. All right. So with, we already went over housekeeping. All right. So kind of a tips recap for strategy here. Have fun. If you're not authentically present and engaged and interested in the conversation or the things that you're doing, and you don't find Clubhouse fun, you feel like it's a waste of time, don't do it. Do it if it's fun. You got to be your whole self, in my opinion. As I mentioned, link to your Instagram or Twitter so folks have a way to DM you. Smaller rooms tend to offer better opportunities to engage. Like, it's cool to be in a room with 5,000 people or 1,000 people, but that's can be cool for passive listening. But if you really want to engage with people, find those smaller rooms on interesting topics with maybe a person or two that you already know. Consider holding off on starting clubs. Try to add depth to existing clubs and build alliances first. I think that's a good strategic move. I mentioned that. Experiment with your notification frequency settings and find a mix that's good for you. Find a good group of clubs and interests to follow, especially if you're just getting started with Clubhouse. So that way the recommendation algorithms serve you well. Avoid moderating a room alone. When you start a room, you're in there by yourself. Somebody joins, they see nobody's in there, and then they leave. Somebody joins, they see nobody's in there, and they leave. Get a co-moderator. That way, if you're buried in the app and pinging people and searching for people to bring in, they can keep the mic live and keep the party going, right? Kind of like with Zoom, it's tough to host Zooms by yourself. So that's why I'm glad I have Terry and stuff to help manage traffic so I can stay focused on the content, right? Look meaningful Clubhouse connections up and promptly connect with them. I do so on LinkedIn. If you have another social media platform of choice, that way you can maintain that connection over time. All right, so we're right at an hour. Took a little more to dive into some of these things, but we answered questions along the way. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. So if people want to hop on camera that haven't been and ask a verbal question, I think we'd be fine to open up for that, Terry and Kaylee.
Yeah.
And I'm willing to stick around a little bit if anybody kind of wants to talk Clubhouse as well, kind of unofficially off the recording.
Tim, one quick question. How do you use this from an authentic demand generation?
Mm-hmm.
Do you use this as a way to cultivate relationships and expand awareness of what you do? And I know, Tina, you're a power user and you've used it to grow your business significantly in a short period of time, but what's the best way to use it authentically, if you could summarize that?
Sure. So I think that if your business is relationship driven, something like a coach or a consultant, or even if it's a really specialized field, if you connect with people who are part of your target audience, your ideal clients, and you connect with more and more people that fit that mold, you're just going to have the opportunity to be in more authentic and sometimes unrelated to your business conversations with them. And I really just see it as a networking and relationship building platform that also gives you lots of speaking opportunities. If as you connect with people you wouldn't have otherwise met, and you have similar spheres of genius, it opens up podcast guest opportunities and just running rooms together. Like, in my opinion, I think as far as demand generation, it's all about building relationships. And I think the right mix for Clubhouse is kind of a 50-50 blend of personal and professional. So you're putting more of your personal self out there and getting personal connections with people over non-business related things, so that folks are more receptive to talking about each other's professional capacities and more willing to do that one-on-one Zoom follow-up or see the type of value you offer, because you've already spoken, you've already had that thing, you've already bonded over maybe something has nothing to do with what you do professionally. So that's my take on it, Terry, if that answers your question.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Great.
Other questions for Tim?
Yes, I do have a question for Tim. Thanks, Terry. Tim, I'm just curious because I know that a few Clubhouse or club, they are doing recording. And then after that, they also using that as a podcast episode, because I have a podcast, right? And then, I've been trying to think how can I not creating one recording for my podcast and another recording for having speaker on Clubhouse, but doing it together. What is your experience, and then what have you seen so far?
Well, that's a great question. I've seen a lot of people experimenting with trying to podcast live while running a live Clubhouse room. I've seen people do networking events where they're doing like a Zoom happy hour networking event, but they're also broadcasting on Clubhouse. People naturally pop into the Clubhouse, but then there's the information, hey, if you want to upgrade this and join it on Zoom, click on this link. From a recording standpoint, it's important that if you are recording to put, first off, to put it in the room title. If you're recording people's voices, it's you're not required to, but I think it's real common courtesy that in the room title, maybe put like a red recording dot emoji. You'll see that on some rooms. I'm sure you have. Just so people are aware that the room is being recorded. I think it's a good courtesy. As far as recording your podcast, recording the Clubhouse, there's no native Clubhouse in-app recording. So you're going to have to use some sort of third-party service anyhow. And unfortunately, I'm not super smart on the best apps and programs to use to record stuff, because in my profession, I'm not allowed to. I'm not allowed to record things that I do professionally because of client privacy concerns and things like that. But I think from a strategy standpoint, thinking about a Clubhouse room is just a live radio show where people aren't calling in, they're hopping in the audience, coming on stage and answering questions. So a live radio show with some audience interaction that you can then publish as a podcast episode. Maybe, ideas that come to mind are maybe, if I do this podcast weekly, once a month, we're going to go live on Clubhouse with it, have it more of like live event. Like you'll see radio shows that we're live on location, right? Think about Clubhouse like that. You're going to do a live on location kind of digital podcast and have it be a little bit of a different format. So that way you can just use it as a product instead of having to edit it incredibly. Is that helpful at all for you, Christina?
Yeah, it is. Thank you so much. That's a great idea, actually.
Perfect. Okay. Any other questions, whether it's app features or just kind of strategy or ideas? I'm really glad Terry kind of asked like, okay, well, that's great how to use Clubhouse, but what do we get out of it, right? How do we help this scale and grow our business? And I think it's great with relationship building businesses. Just get more relationships out there. I've got, honestly, I joined in January, and I've got 2 great new clients that I met off Clubhouse, and lots of other people that I'm building relationships with that could turn into that. So is it the most efficient use of my time for demand generation? No, it's not the most efficient use of your time, but there is value there. Right. And I think for some people in some professions, it could be a really efficient use of their time. But part of my thing is I use it 50% personal. I'm getting to know people in the neighborhood. Like, to me, that has value outside of my business. And so you want to find the things where you're getting multiple wins at once. So that way you're not so worried about the efficiency of it, in my opinion. All right. Anybody else have any comments, questions, or ideas? Love to hear from some other folks. And if not, we'll go ahead and wrap it up since we're over. And I apologize for for everything taking about 10 minutes longer to go through than I thought it would.
Oh, that's awesome, Tim. I just want to, thank you so much for just raising your hand and jumping in. The structure that you provided. I think you over exceeded my expectations in terms of the structure that you organized this for. It's going to make a really useful tool, and we'll place it in the course. So thank you so much. And when I come to Seattle, I've got something special for you.
No, it'll be great to see if you're up here visiting. And I'm actually going to head down to Charleston for a visit here. I don't know if we have any folks down there in South Carolina.
Yeah, we're looking at June, July, having a hub meeting out there. So.
Oh, cool.
I know.
All right. Well, sounds exciting. Thanks everybody for coming. Hopefully you got something useful out of this, whether you're an advanced Clubhouse person or just getting started or waiting for the Android app. It's all good information. So thanks everybody.
Thanks you guys.